Okay, hello. I'm standing here in the kitchen. It's kind of late, so I have to be a little bit quiet. I just wanted to create a video on the progress of the core API of the overmind project, like the next type of Cerebral tool. And like it's really come together now, so I just wanted to show you this. And it seems very simple, but it's actually super complex how the typing works, and I'm just super happy that it all works because it's really cool. And I have to give a big shout out to Fabrice for helping me out with this. He has a mad black magic skills in TypeScript. Anyways, so the kind of cool thing that appeared that I didn't see until right before I started recording is that we are actually now treating JavaScript module files as the modules of your application, which seems like evident, but yeah, typically you wrap in classes and factories and stuff, but in this concept you don't have to do that. So if we want to create a module for our application, we just create a file, and then we can export a type of state. And of course I will show this in TypeScript. And we want the foo string, and then we export the actual state with foo is what up? Oh, sorry, const what up? And then we can just export some providers, which is empty. Currently you have to provide providers. So let's export that first. And then we go into our main application file. And what we're going to do is to prepare the context of this application. So first of all, let's import everything from module A. And we are going to create our app context. And we do that simply by, we want to create the state for the whole application. So we do that by just saying type of module A state. And then we have the providers for the application, and currently we only have one module. And then we create the app context, and that uses context, and we give it the state, and we give it the providers. Okay, and when we now have the app context, we can also create our app action type, because this requires access to the context. Like all the actions needs to know about the state and the providers. So we say iaction. What is it? App context, like this, and we want to export this because we want to use it inside our module. So now that we have defined like the basic typing, we can go back to our module and we can import app action from the index. And then let's define some actions. And we actually don't export single actions. We actually have to create a function that receives the action, and then we return an object that holds the actions for this module. So for example, should this work? App action, then I call it, oh sorry, it's from test. There we are. So you actually return your actions in a function. And the reason for this is that we need to have information about, like the application has to load up before it can configure the actions. So when the application loads up, it calls these actions functions on all the modules and makes them work. You don't really have to think about it, just accept it. So let's have an action foo, and we want that to be a string, and then we want to map to let's see, value.to uppercase. So everything here is typed now. Since I said string here, the value is string, and I also have access to my state here, as you can see. And if I were to add something to providers here, for example, hello, or say hello, and that would just return a string. Say hello, and when I look at my provider here, I should have say as well. Okay, so you see that we cannot transfer the information into this function, actions function. Anyways, so we have that one. Let's save it. And what we want to do now is actually create our application. So our application currently just returns a connect. I'll explain this. This is like a proof of concept thing. And we say new app, and what we pass in is module A. So from our application now, we get this connect thing. And just imagine this is the function you use to connect to components. So you don't have to create like a container or a provider or anything like that. You can just start connecting. So let's say we are connecting to a component here. We connect, and if we take a look at comp A now, this actually has the state for us. So we have foo here, and we also have actions and foo. And if I try to call it, it gives him an error because it actually requires a string. And you also see that it actually returns a string. So I can pass that. Okay, so like with extremely little effort, you get a module that looks like this. You just export state, providers, and actions, and then you put it into the app, and then you have the ability to connect wherever you want. Now, one last thing I want to show you is in module, and like this might not seem very impressive, but it's actually really cool. So let's create a module B here. We want our app action from test. We want to export some state from this one as well. So let's say a bar. Okay, I'm getting tired. And then we export the actual state, which is bar true. And we export some empty providers, and we export some actions, which is the app action. And we can use the shorthand here. So blah. It's an action which takes, for example, a number. Or we can use a string here as well, and then we can say map to value, and then maybe we can bring in the context here. What was it? Say say.hello +2 plus value. Yeah, just silly stuff. And then, so the point there is that in Cerebral we have this submodule concept. In my experience, submodules is just confusing in terms of either the state and the logic of a submodule is so tightly connected to its parent that it should really just be substate of the parent, or it doesn't really, even if like in the UI, it's, for example, in Code Sandbox we have workspace, and under workspace we have files, but files isn't really connected to workspace. It just happens to be there from a UI perspective. So it could just as well be a sibling module. And I think this will clean up a little bit, that we just have a flat module structure. So basically just have a list of modules instead of nesting modules. As I said, if you have a tightly connected state, it should just be in the same module. But let me show you how we make this work with typing. So let's import as well module B here. And we want to type of module B state, and type of module B providers, even though there's nothing there. That's all we have to do. And then I just call it config for now. So what we do is we compose module A with module B, and then we say config. And then when connecting now, we can see that inside state we also have bar, and in actions we also have our blah thing that requires a string, which also returns a string. Okay, but I think this is this proof of concept will go into the specification for the overmind project, and yeah, I think it's really starting to get come together, and I hope you liked what you saw, and I'm super excited to start implementing this stuff. Like, all the pieces of the puzzle are now ready. It's only about bringing it together. Okay, awesome. Bye bye.